Greetings fellow guitar travellers, it's Rowan J Parker here with another episode of Fusion Essentials, and today's episode, which is part 2, we're going to get into some more ideas for playing outside, so some rather cool and interesting stuff coming your way very shortly. Before we get into today's lesson, I'd like to encourage you to have a look at my website, which is www.rowanjparker.com. There's a whole ton of stuff on that site, most of which is free. There's well over 100 video lessons now. There's a store where you can buy things if you feel so inclined at very reasonable prices. There's also a subscriber exclusive area to the website where you get access to even more free content, and to get that all you need to do is stick your email address into the subscriber box and hit subscribe. It's a no-brainer. Also, if you like anything you see today and you want to learn more about it, you want some more specific one-to-one help, then I do lessons over Skype, and don't just play jazz, play various other things as well. I play blues and rock and country and metal and classical guitar too. So whatever you're into, I'm sure I can help you out. So if you want some special help, then just go to the website and there's a section where you can request some information about Skype lessons. Alright, well, that does it for the introduction. Let's get straight into today's lesson, which is part 2, about how to play outside. So let's do it. Okay, let's just set the scene here a little bit and refer to the previous lesson. So if you've not already watched part 1, I suggest you go and watch that first and then come back and watch this one. In last week's lesson, we discovered that over our static A minor 7 chord, we could play an A Dorian scale, and we could also use A melodic minor for a slightly outside sounding scale choice. Now we're going to push this further today, and we're going to use another melodic minor scale, but we're going to use this time C melodic minor. So just to be clear, we're going to be playing a C melodic minor scale on top of an A minor 7 chord. Now at this point you're probably going, whoa, how can you do that? How can you play a C minor scale on top of an A minor chord? Surely that will sound horrible. Well, that's debatable. So what we'll do is explain the theory behind it and why it's going to work and what sort of sound it will give us. So let's look at the notes in our C melodic minor scale. C melodic minor is C, D, E flat, F, G, A, B, and then back to C. Now let's arrange those notes starting on the note of A, and that will produce a mode of melodic minor. So the notes we will have then will be A, B, C, D, E flat, F, G, and A. Right, so what we need to do is compare those notes with our A minor 7 chord and understand intervallically what we actually have. So A minor 7, now obviously the A note is going to be the root of that chord. So A is the root of an A minor 7 chord, no mystery there. Then the second note of our scale, which will be B. Now B is the 2nd or the 9th degree, so that's a very inside sound, that's going to be no problem. And the next note is going to be C, which is the flattened 3rd or minor 3rd of the chord. So again, no problem so far. And the next note, D, is the 4th or 11th. So far, the first 4 notes we have are all very, very inside the chord. They are the same 4 notes you find in A Dorian and the same 4 notes you find in A melodic minor. So there's nothing really unusual happening yet. So let's look at the next note. The next note in the scale is E flat. Now against the A minor 7 chord, this would be the flattened 5th or diminished 5th. So this will have a slightly dissonant or outside sound. The flattened 5th is the note that you hear in the blues scale. So even though it is technically a little bit dissonant and a little bit out, our ears are so accustomed to it because we are used to listening to the blues scale all the time. And so the ear really accepts this as being a fairly inside sound, even though technically speaking it is quite dissonant. Okay, let's move along. Next note in the scale would be F. Now in relationship to our A minor 7 chord, this is the sharpened 5th of that chord, sharp 5, or if you prefer flat 6 minor 6. It's the same note. Now this note on a minor chord is quite often not that satisfactory. It sounds fine if you add it into the chord, but believe me, if you're playing an A minor 7 chord and you strike and hold the F against it, it can sound fairly tense. But remember, what we're trying to do here is deliberately introduce tension into our improvisation. So the fact that it is a tense note against the chord is the entire point. However, you'll probably find that when you hear this note to start with, your ear starts to go, oof, don't know if I like that. However, once you become accustomed to it, it starts to sound pretty good. And then the next note in the scale will be G, which is an extremely concordant and consonant note on the chord. It is the flat 7th or minor 7th. And then we were back to the note of A, which is of course the octave or the root. So the only two notes in this C melodic minor scale which are a little bit out as against the A minor 7 chord are the E flat note, which is the flattened 5th or diminished 5th, and it is the F note, which is the sharpened 5th, or we can also construe that as the minor 6 or flat 6 interval. So the effect of playing this scale on top of an A minor 7 chord is to generate or imply the sound of either A minor 7 flat 5 or A minor 7 sharp 5. Okay? So that's the sort of overall sound or effect we will generate. So I would tend to regard this as a minor 7 flat 5 sound more than anything else. And this is because this particular mode of melodic minor is one that I would use to play over minor 7 flatted 5 chords. The mode itself can be described in two different ways. It can be called Locrian natural 2, because it's like a Locrian mode with a major second, or it can be described as Aeolian flat 5, so an Aeolian mode with a flattened 5th. Prefer to think of it as a Locrian natural 2 because that sort of in my mind refers more to minor 7 flat 5. So in effect what we're doing is superimposing or pushing a minor 7 flat 5 sound on top of our minor 7 sound, and that's the sort of the out element of the scale choice. So I think what we'll do now is we're going to give you a brief improvisation demo where I'm just going to be playing this scale, C melodic minor, or if you prefer A Locrian natural 2, on top of our A minor 7 groove, and we can have a good listen to exactly how these outside colours sound. Initially, some parts may sound quite tense, but like a lot of new sounds, once you become accustomed to how it in fact does sound, then it becomes a great sound, and you will enjoy it, hopefully. So let's get straight to improvisation. Here we go. hope you enjoyed that improvisation, and you could see how the scale sounds in action. Quite an outside sound, but once you get used to it, it's fantastic. Just to give you a little bit more theory, we will look at the chords in the key of C melodic minor, and just to remind you that apart from just playing straight scale material, you can play arpeggios which are related to the key as well. So, in C melodic minor, the first chord is C minor major 7, and the second chord is D minor 7, and then the third chord would be E flat major 7 sharp 5. This could also be called E flat major 7 augmented, or sometimes Lydian augmented, can be referred to as a Lydian augmented chord because it represents that mode. And the next two chords are dominant 7th chords, F7, G7, and chord 6 is A minor 7 flat 5, which is very specific to what we're talking about today because it's really that sound we're using. And then chord 7 is another minor 7 flat 5, which, as we'll see at some other lessons, isn't really a minor 7 flat 5 at all, but is in fact an altered dominant in disguise. But however, we'll leave that for another day. So remember, you can apply all these arpeggios over your groove, your vamp. So I think you can see the possibilities are now already starting to multiply tremendously. We've got three choices now: Dorian for a very inside sound, A melodic minor for that little bit of spicy outside sound, and then C melodic minor start getting quite out there with alterations to the fifth. Alright, well, that really wraps up today's lesson. Hope you tune in for next week's lesson, which is going to push this melodic minor concept even further to create some really, really tense outside, but ultimately very musical and interesting sounds. So hope you've enjoyed, got something out of it, and you're learning how to get some of these outside sounds into your playing, and I hope to see you on the next episode. So until then, farewell.